Well, hello, everybody. When I first started putting myself out there online, on LinkedIn specifically, I talked a lot about my identity and my experience of being Asian American. It was around 2020, the pandemic was starting. And so, unfortunately, the rise of anti Asian hate. And so, I found myself, as a business owner, intentionally marketing myself on LinkedIn. And kind of in this, all of a sudden elevated into this like quote unquote influencer of someone who was being watched and and talking about Asian identity, right? Because in the diversity, equity, inclusion space, I think what people also realized was, hey, we don't have a lot of either. We don't actually have a lot of Asians in this space, or we don't see a lot of. There's not a lot of visibility to us. So the topic of being Asian American has become something that I am sought to speak about often, and I'm really excited to bring on a couple of guests today to expand, the conversation. And so we're going to be talking about the difference even between Asian Americans, Asian immigrants, navigating careers in the U.S. and Canada, and also this move into entrepreneurship, and potentially the balance of being both someone inside corporate America or an organization and running your own business. So, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Carissa Begonia. I am a business coach for BIPOC entrepreneurs, a LinkedIn expert, and top voice. I'm a second generation Filipino American daughter of immigrants and the first and only in my family to start my own business. I believe that entrepreneurship is the path to equity and that life design is liberation. And at my company, Conscious Exchange, we're creating an ecosystem filled with this mission with other BIPOC entrepreneurs to achieve time, location, financial, and occupational freedom for themselves, as well as their families and their communities. So thank you all so much for joining Wisdom and Wellness, where my business besties and I will share some practical tips, mindset tips around questions that we're often asked about what it's like to run your own business. So if you have any questions, if you want to say hi, share some love, etc., just drop some comments in the chat. And then for now, I want to introduce you all to my friends Jerry and Gloria. Hi, Jerry, Gloria.
Hello.
Hello. Why don't you go ahead? I just did a little spiel on myself, and I would love for you all to introduce yourselves as well.
I can go first. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Carissa, for having us today. My name is Gloria Song. I'm the CEO and principal coach at CoChange Lab. I empower immigrant women to design, create their dream careers, and execute their career strategy with confidence and resilience. Nice to meet you all today.
Awesome. How about you, Jerry?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Fu. I'm a career and leadership coach for Asian leaders, specifically helping them become more visible, vocal, and valuable, taking them from self-doubt to self-assurance. And I do this through coaching and facilitating and keynote presentations.
Thank you. Short and sweet. I'm just loving that we've got 3 Asian coaches in the room right now, because I know when I started in 2020, I didn't see us. Like I did it. I was looking for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially at that time, I was still also like balancing career and entrepreneurship a little bit. So I just go us. I remember emerging like now that Asians are want specific coaches to help them navigate their careers, having people that look like them who understand our cultural backgrounds. Like there's a lot more of us now, and I think that's really something to be proud of for all of us. So yay!
Mm-hmm.
Well, that first, well, the first thing I wanted to ask about is, you're both career and leadership coaches, and I just love to hear about your own journey specifically, because sometimes I think, with the model minority myth and the bamboo ceiling, there are potential obstacles and things to be really proud of because people don't expect us to be potentially in the places that we are. So, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about your career journeys first, we'll go for career. We'll talk about entrepreneurship a little bit. And how did you get into the work that you do?
Is it my turn to go first, or do you want to keep Gloria going
Sure,
first?
let's do
All
that.
right, sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Just point at me or something. Yeah. I have been practicing as a pharmacist for 18 years, and the tagline that I usually tell people is that leadership is what saved my career. I started off working for a chain pharmacy for the first 5 years of my life, my career life. at the behest of my well-meaning but very risk-averse mother, who said, "This is the company that will give you the benefits and stability your dad never had, despite having 2 master's degrees." And so for 5 years, I went along with what she said, with some resentment, actually, but reluctance as well. But I did enjoy the benefits, and I got complacent for a little bit until I had an incident that told me, no, like, this is not a good long-term investment of your life or your career. And so I leveraged my connections to get a teaching job through a pharmacy consulting company that I was really excited to work for, which was great until I got fired 11 months later. And then after that first reality check, the second was when I ended up working at a job where 4 of my paychecks bounced filling for crooked doctors. So not only was I jeopardizing my license, I wasn't even getting paid for it. How do you confront a boss who's clearly ripping you off? They don't tell you this in life's manual. You never think, oh, I'd have to deal with something like this. So then my friends helped me get out of that job into a company more legitimate, but it couldn't pay me more than 8 hours a week. And so I said, well, what can I do? And they said, well, if you go to Austin to cover out the location out there, we can get you more hours. So I go out to Austin with no idea of what my life will look like. That summer was key because I helped facilitate some leadership material at a seminar hosted by some friends of mine. And that was when the journey started to change, because I said, wow, I used to say, wow, leadership is hard. I could never do it well. But then I started to ask myself, well, what if I could be a good leader? And so having the confidence to take on a manager position in Houston, where I was living at the time, that's ultimately what opened doors after that company had its funding pulled. But at the same time, I got sick of just companies that would die after 1 or 2 years because their business models were not viable. And so about 6 years ago, that was when I thought, you know what, I think I want to focus on people development now to help leaders like myself the way which I've been helped at that stage in life. But still scared to start a business. I didn't know how to start or build a business. And so it wasn't until I got coach training as the pandemic ramped up where things kind of came together, where I said, well, I've got training. I know people who started and run their own businesses. When will this dream take off? And so that 3 years ago, actually, I just celebrated my company's 3rd-year anniversary recently, a couple weeks ago. So that's how I got into that space. And why does this matter now? Because, that's where the tagline comes from. It's just recognizing, hey, we need to get the right kind of attention. We're tired of avoiding criticism, but also we get mad when we get passed over for promotions or someone else takes our credit. And then we'd say, hey, how do I speak up without antagonizing people? And, getting my point across in a way that we actually lead to productive conversations. And they're uncomfortable, but I can handle it. And then, saying I'm valuable, I matter. And I need you to know that I'm happy and comfortable with the seat at the table, and I won't settle for anything less than that.
There were so many things I wanted to be like, and I took notes. So we're going to come back to some of these points, Jared, that I think are super resonant, especially as someone who, with Asian identity. So, but pause. Well, let's go to Gloria. Gloria would love to hear a little bit more about your career journey as well, and how you ended up in the field that you're in.
Sure. I think my career crisis came in a very early age when I was graduating from my university. So at that moment, I had mid-quarter life crisis, not knowing really what do I need to do next. What is the career that I want to build? And at the time, I was an international student in Singapore. So I originally coming from South Korea and just graduating from Singapore University and trying to kind of figure out the reality of, okay, I need to get a job because I need a visa for me to stay in this land. At the same time, I want to find something that is meaningful, that can help me to move forward, but I wasn't sure what that was. And at the moment, one thing that was happening to me, luckily, was my alumni mentorship program that was happening in my university. So I got assigned to the mentor who was an executive coach. And that executive coach actually coached me, not mentored me, and helped me to kind of identify what is my career goals and purpose and what I want to do with my life. So at the moment, I clearly identified my vision and purpose of what I want to do in terms of my career, which was empowering people. And I think that's the start of, the seed in my journey of what does it mean to empower people in the corporate spaces. So the first job that I had was at Microsoft as a sales desk associate. And that was the job that I was helping account executive who's managing the enterprise account to close the deal with a higher deal strategy and also coach them with the relationship building to build a better relationship with their clients. And that's the kind of the taste of, I think, just of the coaching that I had, and which led me to, I think, pursuing the further certification of my coaching journey. And that's where I decided, okay, this is something that I really want to do with my life. And luckily at the moment, opportunity for participating and learning and development team at Autodesk came in. And that was when I was in Singapore. So I was starting to manage leadership and soft skill development program for Asia Pacific region for the employees there. And that led me into building my career in Canada with Autodesk, transferring into this North America part of the land, continuing to build my global presence in terms of, I think, developing and managing learning development program. And one thing that really stuck me during this time of working in global IT sector was why there are so many changes and why is it so hard to go through that journey together as an organization? Why change becomes so dysfunctional? So I have been questioning that in my head for many, many years and trying to implement the programs and skill development to allow people to actually go through and empower through the changes. But I feel like there's something missing in this puzzle that I just don't know how to navigate it. Skill building is not enough, but what else? And that's where I started to understand more about organizational development and systemic ways of driving changes within the organization. And I pursued master's degree in human systems intervention when I came to Canada. And I think coupled with my immigrant experience at the time, becoming totally different person, although I have the same identity, but perceived identity in North America of me being Asian immigrant was having so much different impact in the way that I, show up at workplace, how I get perceived, how I am included in the space. So that I think passion for inclusion and driving human-centered culture, inclusive culture within the organization kind of coupled that together. And that led me into pursue change management career within the organization to support some of the big transformation work. And I think that was peak of my career, but at the same time, I felt like there's something missing in terms of the things that I'm doing. I think at the moment, one of my close friend also passed away at the age of 52. And I was wondering what it's like to really, at this point of my career, living in a meaningful life and really create an impact that I want to create that I have discovered early in my career. And after the reflection, I decided, okay, maybe doing the direct coaching and direct work with facilitation and consultation on my own is going to start me to get closer to the purpose that I want to establish, which is empowering people. And now that I have a different context of experience being in Asia as well as in North America, coming that together to bring more diversity and thoughts into the work that I do and what it means to actually build that inclusive and human-centered organization. That's how my entrepreneurship journey has, started. And here I am after 1.5 years.
Thanks for sharing, Gloria. Again, so many, I was taking notes. I'm like, oh, I want to dive more into that. I think when we were setting this event up, especially, there are sometimes, I think Asians are seen as a monolith often. And even within Asian communities, there's a difference between being Asian American or Asian Canadian versus an Asian immigrant, And so part of what I want to talk about today is that difference that even sometimes Asians don't talk about, right? When we're talking about like this bigger umbrella and being leaders, So, okay, I'm like, I have so many notes. I'm like, where do I go here? The first thing that's interesting is even how your career started. Because Gloria, what I picked up was, I was already my career crisis happened out of college. I didn't even know what to do next. And I think a lot of us feel that way. And you had already a sense of purpose. I'm an older millennial. I'm like, I don't know that I was going for purpose right away. I was going for money and leadership and title and status. I don't know if that's an American thing or not, and then Jerry, yours was from a place of like safety security, because you slid in there, like, because even when my dad had 2 master's degrees, it didn't matter, it wasn't enough, you know. So I wanted to just to kind of talk about that, like just the starting point, right? Because you might be someone who's like super ambitious and ready to be like, well, the world is my oyster, or I don't know what to do when I first start. And I want something that is more purpose driven, or like, I don't, you said also slipped in there, Jerry. I regret it. I was sort of like reluctant or resistant to becoming doing the safety security thing that my against my mom or whatever, but that's just what I did, right? Like a good Asian child, right? Like, and so even those 3 different starting points when we're moving into our career, we can all get into a place of entrepreneurship eventually. But yeah, like how, as you hear each other's stories, even, um, what, like, how do you even perceive each other's stories around that? And it's like, oh man, I wish I was able to do that, or like, wow, that sounds hard. I'm just curious, just now that the starting points are different.
It's always fascinating to kind of hear, I think, other people's lived experience and actually how it shapes, our career choices. And most often, I think it is what we have learned from our past experiences that informs our future career decision. And then I think for me, the reason why I wanted to pursue more purpose-driven career, I think part of that was my own disability. So when I was 15 years old, I got diagnosed with this incurable condition in my eye on my cornea. And then they say, doctor said I will eventually go blind. And that was kind of, midlife, death sentence. But then another doctor gave me a new perspective, say, you are having this symptoms and disease, and that's true, but you still have existing vision that you can see the world. And after I hear that from the first diagnosis, my perspective of life shifted. In a sense, I have a half full glasses. I can see that, eventually I'm going to lose my vision versus, I still have this vision to enjoy my life with and do something with it. And I think that moment of perspective changed me thinking in my earlier age, saying, okay, what is it like to live my life to a full capacity, to enjoy the half empty glasses or half full glasses that I have. And I think that helped me pursue my overseas education because I was curious. What's the outside world looks like outside of Korea? And, what experience that would entail. So I think it's just a lens of curiosity that I was being led to, and that got me into more intentional about, I think, unconsciously. Not that I want to do purpose-driven career work, but it's more like what does seem true to me and what is important to me happen to be, I think, pursuing more purposeful career and making an intentional choices out of that. But it could have happened in many different places outside of career too, right? Yeah, but I think those lived experiences that I had in my earlier age gave me ponder and reflect on different questions in life, and shape who I am in the time that I'm making those career choices. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Gloria, because one of the first exercises I give my clients, whether I was doing leadership development, career, and still entrepreneurship, is a timeline, right? That like, and going
Yeah.
back to our childhood, even, because the things that we've experienced really do shape the decisions we make today, whether we're conscious of it or not, right? And it sounds like
Mhm.
you were told something quite scary, tragic, early on, that like, okay, I'm gonna live like the most, like create the most I can out of my life, and potentially, you mentioned, Jerry, like an incident or so incidents that maybe have moved you more to, again, purpose driven work. I know, same thing with me. I was like, I was fighting. And I'm curious for you, Jerry, because you said that there was even a sense of reluctance or just like hesitation to pursue the more safety security like role that your mother was proud of, right? And was there purpose in there for you too? But again, maybe not having the same freedom or necessity for that to be the number one thing you pursue at that moment when you were deciding to go into pharmacy school, for example.
Yeah, to pull back the curtain a little further on that. Yeah, originally I was pre-med. It was like that was just like the default career path because my grandpa was a physician. I had, uncles who were physicians. I had cousins who were Harvard educated doctors. So the bar was set pretty high for me. And so when I actually got to see in organic chemistry, that was like Asian career death, right? You're just like, I clearly was not focused enough, or I didn't have a clearly purpose driven why as to why I wanted to even become a physician, right? And so I was like, well, I still need to pivot to something. I still liked healthcare. And so I ended up picking pharmacy just because, it was a shorter line to get in at pharmacy school than it was at med school, especially when I kind of dug myself in an academic hole. And yeah, to your point, Gloria, right? Like we think that life works a certain way, right? Oh, I get good grades. I follow the safe path, and as if I'm entitled to something that the world owes me now that I followed these rules. And then you get to a point where you realize the world doesn't owe you anything just because you followed these rules, right? There are plenty of people that are very smart and talented that are still unemployed. And so when, like you said, and so when you realize, hey, you know what, this safe life is not satisfying like I thought it would, but then when you're like been taught that risk is bad and, losing things is bad and wasting time and money is also bad, then you just feel paralyzed, right? And so it wasn't until you realize the mortality of it all, and that comes from acceptance, right? You're just like, my vision is not going to get any better, and I can sit here and feel sorry for myself like my dad did. He retired early when he just couldn't have the career that he wanted. And so when you have that acceptance to say, hey, you know what, my life is going to average about 4,000 weeks. Like, what will I do with them, right? Like nothing I do will change that fact. Well, okay, now that I've accepted that tough truth, well, now how can I live more productively and meaningfully? And people also need to remember that, purpose is something that you discover along the way. Like as much as we want to be efficient and quick and accurate in discovering this, the myth that you could find this out any sooner than you did is exactly that. It's just a myth. And even for the people who did seem to know, like my best friend from high school knew he wanted to be a pediatrician. He still has plenty of life to live that out. And at some point may discover there's more than just being a pediatrician, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But it's just this more of this continual iterative process of recognizing that what satisfied me in my 20s will not work in my 30s, and it won't work in my 40s, and it'll change when I'm in my 50s. Right.
Mm-hmm. I love that, we're always evolving, whether that in our careers and certainly in entrepreneurship, and permission to do that. Because I think we are very much given a narrative of if you don't figure this out as soon as you go to college or even sooner, right? There's reasons Kumon exists. There's reasons some of these test prep and stuff is so intense, right? Is because we're taught at an early age, especially in Asian culture, right? You have to do well to get to the good school, to get to the good job. Mm-hmm. And so you can have all the wonderful things, right? And not necessarily true, right? We can see that we can follow all the rules and still come up at a ceiling or et cetera. Asian conversations often talk about modern or myth, bamboo ceiling. I kind of want to skip that. I want to talk about incidents. Like Jerry, you said you got fired, right? And y'all, I was on a probation plan. There was an opportunity for me also to get fired, right? I don't think we talk about that, because there's this perceived perfectionism that Asian Americans they're just good at school, good at everything, obedient, and that there's no way that we're causing a ruckus in our companies. I mean, I was put on a probation plan because I was too inquisitive. I asked too much about my boss who was about to retire, and which was an old white man, and I'm like, can you explain more of that? And I'm early, newly promoted 20-something-year-old, and I'm just precocious, and that's the kind of crap that I think has worked against me in my career. Is you don't expect a young person, or who even looks even younger because I'm Asian, right? To challenge the status quo, to just challenge simple processes or ask questions about why, we do the things we do at work, right? And then I got in trouble. So curious I'd love to just talk a little bit more about that. The journey, not doing well in school. I didn't do great. I lost my scholarship my first year of college, and I went to a state school because I played and partied too hard. And no one told me that, hey, that's going to follow your GPA for the rest of your life. So, but here I am. I'm fine, right? Like totally fine, thriving business. It's all good. Um, yeah, just kind of shedding light a little bit on reality that, hey, we might not talk about the perceived mess ups, right? Or it's to me, it's just like, oh, that happened. Ain't nothing but a thing. Like that's nice. Like that just made me more wise about other things, right? So if you want to share what some of those challenges have been within again career, or we'll talk about entrepreneurs in a second, but yeah, like as you were moving into your leadership roles.
Yeah, I'll go this time. We can rock paper scissors later, Gloria, if you're like, ooh, I want to jump in on this. So ironically enough, Carissa, like my problem when I got fired was actually I wasn't challenging enough, right? Like I treated things like fine china because I was like the rule follower, and I just said, well, I don't want to upset anybody if I have a good idea. Number one, I didn't believe I have any good ideas. I was just like, well, this company is so much better than I am, and they're more established than I am, and I don't have the requisite experience. So, who's at my place to actually say anything? And then after it got to a point where they just said, Jerry, if you're just going to say everything's okay as is, like, why did we bring you in here? Right. And that was hard. Right. So you have this balance of this curiosity, which is meant to be healthy. And we like it. We'd say, oh, kids are curious. And then we're like, after a while, we're like, shut up. Like we just take what would tell you at face value and then just drum that out. And then later we're like, why am I not creative anymore? It's like, well, what do you think the system did to you? Right. And so to find that balance of, like curiosity, what can I learn? And to, when I got certified in designing your life, right? This is what they said. Hey, curiosity is a key component, and this is a muscle you can re-exercise and strengthen again in order to get that back. And so, being too afraid to confront people, right? I also got put on probation by one of the other companies before I got this funding pulled because I was not writing up or firing problematic technicians. And so again, I didn't challenge the status quo enough, right? Clearly it was unacceptable. And then management said, well, your passivity is the bigger problem we need to address here. And when in entrepreneurship, you better have those conversations. Otherwise your company will die, right? Not to get too far ahead of ourselves. But if you're not willing to have the hard conversations, like don't expect it to survive.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes is something for Asians in particular. I hear a lot that like, if I'm too aggressive, then it's like, whoa, right? But if I'm not aggressive enough, then I also get on probation. And what's that balance sometimes? Gloria, curious for you too. Do they, especially as with the expectation we were talking about being an immigrant, that people already are labeling you, I think, differently than say Asian Americans, whether that's, I don't know, accent or whatnot, right?
Right. Like one thing that I can vividly remember after I come to Canada is like I feel like I'm a different person here, even though I work for the same company and I work with people who I used to work and also in different settings. Of course, I get more exposures to headquarters because Canada and North America time zone just align together. But when I was in Singapore, I didn't feel like my career is going to be affected because of my identity. That idea never came across my mind, even though I was a foreigner. But in North America, as I was working through, I think that's kind of nuances that I start to feel. The way that I look, because I'm Asian, I look young. And sometimes I think, and I started with my company as a junior employees and then, slowly grow my career and I realized in some capacity, my promotions or opportunity to get into the senior role has been, I think, in a sense, got infected because of my identity in part, as well as also perception of me being too young. So there are moments that I question, is it my capability versus is it my perception of capability of my decision makers of this hiring is impacting the way that I am doing my career. Of course, I think navigating that is challenging and it takes a long time to build more trust within the organization that I realized. So eventually I was able to get into the managerial position, but that took me at least, I think, 3 to 4 years of good work of, proving myself, establishing your reputation, building a good relationship and collaboration with the team. And whenever I get into the new spaces, even in the same organization, I realized I had to do a lot of unconscious perception management about how I show up. Yeah. And one of the things that I also identify outside of the organization, I was a co-chair of International OD Network Summit this year. And one thing that I want to laugh about is before I get introduced as a co-chair, and the way that they treat me as after I get introduced as a co-chair is vastly different. So it was an interesting experience and observation of how people treat you differently versus your title or just the way you look. So I think those are some of the things that I am mindful as an immigrant on how I get perceived. But at the same time, it's a fine balance that that's not who I am. I have this identity, I have this capacity. It's not that I'm proving, but I know that I have my worth and values and capability to impact and make a contribution. And just balancing that out is always a fine, I think, fine line for me. Yeah. But it's a reality that I'm navigating as an immigrant all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for highlighting you were made aware that you were Asian when you left Asia. I think that's something that people don't realize. Potentially as Asian Americans, Jerry, I don't know, we grow up with that, like you are somewhat different. Frankly, I actually didn't think I was that different up until I was pursuing management level
Mm-hmm.
roles, and I got them because I was actually pretty aggressive, because I was modeling, and there's a different story of where all that comes from. But I'll just say I was modeling my white alpha males and doing the things so that I could be perceived as a very strong leader. And it worked for me, but I'm also very emotional. And so later work has showed me, like, oh, what did you give up? What did you sacrifice to do
Mm-hmm.
that? Right. But the thing for me was it wasn't super conscious until it was actually an incident at work where it was just blatantly clear. Like, and it was no longer something I could ignore. But I was still in shock. There was probably a period of like, what? Because this is in my 30s. I've been in leadership now for, I took on leadership roles pretty early on in my career. So I had probably been a leader for 5, 6, 8 years at that point. Right. And so only until then, when I was, maybe pursuing the next level and it was a very obvious incident that, oh my gosh, there's something else going on, maybe also as a woman, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, Jerry, was there a moment of awareness, or were you were kind of clear on this? Because you also grew up in Texas, right, and spent a lot of time in Houston, so there's a large Asian population, but I don't know how diverse it is, and how intermingled people are. Because New York, same thing, right? So, what's your experience of being made aware that you were Asian?
Yeah, so the full journey. So I started in Wisconsin. Actually, that's where I was. My parents had finished grad school there, so that was my first taste. And yeah, when you're a kid, right, you don't think about it, not really, until like you go to school and then you say, oh, okay, people are different. I never really thought about my Asianness, you could say, until people started to point it out for me, right, when they would tell me, go back to Japan where you belong, even though I am a citizen and my parents are from Taiwan, so I'm not sure why Japan is where I belong, but okay. Then I end up in Tennessee, of all places, and definitely, again, not a lot of Asians in Wisconsin, not a lot of Asians in Tennessee, and so there wasn't a lot to work with, you could say. And so the irony is, when I got to Houston initially for college, other people had their Asian quote cliques, and I didn't know what it was like to be in an Asian clique, so I didn't have an Asian clique either. Like, so that, I was already used to certain kind of habits. Like, the group of friends I had was actually very diverse. We had like Hispanics, and we had other Asians who were also kind of quote whitewashed. They even all sorts of people. And so, yeah, it was interesting because you reminded me of a funny incident where one of my pharmacy school classmates actually told me, he's like, Jerry, you're not Asian. I remember like being more confused by that than people telling me I was Asian, because I was just like, well, yeah, I could see how I'm not really Asian. And at the same time, like, this doesn't change, right? I still have to deal with this. And, yeah, it wasn't. When you grow up, right, you're being scrutinized on every level, right? My Mandarin wasn't good enough for my relatives, and then everyone else is just telling me I don't belong, and then you have your own parents trying to, impose their own expectations on you, and so you're just like, where do I even belong? how do I even feel good about myself in the moment? And you understand later it's not until you get into a more multicultural environment where you realize, oh, everybody deals with this on some level, because this world is so connected. This world is so interchanged. Like the interactions are all over the place with all this travel and everything else like that. So you get people, which the term was TCK, or third culture kids, right? Where they say, I'll be in Singapore and then like Argentina, and then no one else understands what I understand until they all connect online. And then now finally we can, be together and relate to each other's struggles of trying to belong somewhere. So it wasn't until about 6 years ago, basically, to answer your question, that I finally started to realize, hey, you know what? This thing about liking anime and dim sum and salsa dancing and learning German in high school, like, doesn't make me like an outlier, or at least being an outlier isn't a disadvantage. It actually is the reason I can stand out better, ironically enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to shift into entrepreneurship, because you have both become career coaches or leadership coaches. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what inspired that move. What, like, a lot of times, because sometimes, again, safety, security is a big value for Asian communities, right? Asian culture, or at least in the States. Doing something like entrepreneurship that is unstable, right? Wild, is can be uncomfortable. You're a pioneer. You're just different, right? In this pursuit of belonging, we continue to move away from that. Right? So, would love to hear just a little bit more. What was the inspiration or the impetus that said, "Hey, I want to move into coaching, career coaching, leadership coaching"? Y'all can just start
I
talking.
mean, you.
This really nice, like, just popcorn.
We're so Asian.
I can. Yes. For me, I think my corporate job didn't start to feel meaningful anymore. And I think that kind of paused me the reflection. What am I doing here right now? So that was moment of reckoning, and I think I share a little bit. At the moment, there was quite a few things happening in my life, kind of giving me some signs that you don't have time to waste and sit on something that you don't feel that is meaningful. And was, one incident was the death of one of my friends, and there was in his, I think, memorial services. What was happening is in urology, his sister was sharing. He has unrealized dream, which was building an orphanage in Cambodia. And what was happening is he was kind of postponing that after a few years because of other priorities in life, and then never managed to do that before he passed away. And then I think at that moment, I think something really lingered in me that, okay, what is something that I'm postponing in my life just because of security? And at the moment, being an immigrant and also working for the same company for 7.5 years, you feel safe, you feel very secure. I built a really good reputation within this company. I'm earning good income. If I just continue, I think I can see my path forward. But I was really, I think, questioning myself again. What value are you honoring by doing so? And if I think about my deathbed at the moment where I'm in right now, what would I regret if I don't choose? And I think clearly at the moment, coaching and doing consulting work that I feel passionate about, and doing it independently was something that was coming up. So it was conscious choice, but I was so scared. And I'm still scared. It's the reality. But yeah, and I didn't have much plan. I just quit and then built my business afterwards. Yeah, which we can talk about later, a little bit later part of it. Lesson learned.
We'll get there.
But yeah, that was kind of the moment. A lot of different recollection of, I think, everything comes together at the moment for this to happen. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think for me it was a combination of turning 40, the pandemic hitting, and then just realizing, what do I really want to do? Like, that all that came together and said, wow, I've been holding on to a lot of fear of failure and just being afraid to put myself out there. I've struggled with rejection my whole life, really, because I just never learned to deal with it. And then even now, it still stings a little bit, and just reminding myself, hey, what's the cost, right? Because if you're afraid of rejection, don't start your own business. Like, you are not parading around this business for compliments. You are here to, find clients. And the best compliment you can get is to get, clients that pay what your value is. And until you realize that is the true like marker to measure your business by, like, it's just going to be nothing more than a hobby. And that's just what I'm fighting now, right? Like, I'm happy to give you some elaboration, right? This is a messy room, right? This is actually the break room, and people, our colleagues are like, oh crap, he's on the call. And so they're being kind enough to like realize that they're in the middle of something and they don't want to be caught on camera, right? But this is the reality of the situation, is that I am straddling two fences, and we'll see, which one gives out first, and what happens. So, but yeah, just the idea, right? The idea of entrepreneurship is beautiful, right? We like that. Oh, target, strategy, execution, just do all that, and and then you get to it, right? And then I remember that my first year in business, it was like everyone's like, "Oh, congratulations on starting your business," and then you're like, "Now what?" Right? Now where do I find money? Right? You don't. That's just the gate. You're just getting started. And so when you realize, oh, this is a journey, and everyone has good days and bad days. One of my other Asian entrepreneur friends, she went 4 months without revenue this year. At one point, I was just like, how in the world did you survive that and not like curl up in a fetal position and just wonder what to do next? But you don't learn the exercise unless you actually get in the gym. So here we are, trying to realize I'm going to have to shed a lot of old habits and ways of thinking, but at the same time playing to your strengths, right? If I like systems and I like stability, you learn. You're like, hey, I'm pretty good at certain things in my current job. How can I translate that, to my own company? And at the same time, knowing what my role is and how do I fill in the roles that I struggle to fill, if I know if I have to wear other hats for the moment.
Yeah. You mentioned that you are at you're straddling to your job and your business, and I just wanted to highlight that, Gloria, I know that you have done that in some. You're probably going back into that, right, situation. And sometimes we think that it's all or nothing with business. It's like you either quit and you just do the thing, go full all in. And even in entrepreneurial world, it can be looked down upon to be a side hustler, right? And but I actually think you should leverage that. Why not? Especially again, if as a generalization about our culture that there is some security and safety that we are concerned about, like, well, then don't dismiss it and fight it, like fully resist it, use it, right, to support you in having some of that, say, income come in or whatnot, some stability while you are doing something that is wildly unknown for you, right, and learning a new skill set of being a business owner. Do you want to share a little bit more about like how that straddle, right, and even your intention with the straddle?
Yeah, I can take the lead on this one, at least for the first part. I mean, it is, you have to prioritize like every day, right? And it is hard decisions. There is no shortage of hard decisions, because I've had to come to the realization that I only have enough time and energy for two big things in my life. One is day job, one is side job, and then I'm lucky to have a couple things on the fringe that still keep me sane, like reading, sleeping, dancing. But trying to date somebody was hard. Like, it still is hard, and if you're lucky to go on a couple of days and then you realize you don't have the capacity for anything more than that, then you just have to again come to that acceptance that, hey, you know what, that's not something I can afford to pursue right now. Ideally, I've already had a hard truth to say, okay, I have to move one of these two things if I expect to have space for a relationship. Which one's it going to be, right? And I know which one I'd rather it to be, but again, it's just day-to-day execution. And your decisions ultimately decide for you, right, as to what you're really going to receive or attain or settle for. And so, yeah, it is. And there's things where, one spills over into the other, whether you like it or not. And you just have to roll with the punches and just keep finding a way forward every single day, every single moment.
I mean, a big characteristic of entrepreneurs is adaptability, right? And making decisions. Like, you are the CEO now; it's your choice. So, It's up to you. Gloria?
I very resonate with your last word, Jerry. I think it is everyday choices. Like every day I need to recommit my intentions and purpose of why I'm doing this because there are moments of uncertainty. I think for me, if I reflect back my journey, I think what allowed me to just quit at that moment, although it wasn't like intentionally planned that I'm going to do that, is because I had 2 years of saving. I didn't have to work for 2 years and I will still be able to navigate my finances. And it was just because I happen to save a lot. I'm not a spender. Maybe that's also an Asian trait. live, live, frugally. But I also have my partner. So I had the support systems and finance to allow me to get into this, I think, exploration without worrying too much. But even with that, I feel like I was a little scared. In the few months that are coming in, you're very lucky if you have, I think, immediate source of income, but it doesn't really happen if you just create and start to build your own businesses. It takes at least, I think, few couple of good months to generate the leads and create a source of, I think, pipelines of, income that might be coming in. And we don't know exactly whether this is going to come to fruition or not. I think in my case, I was very lucky to have my previous employer becoming one of my core clients. So a lot of my previous colleagues that I used to work together became my coaching client, and I also got some consulting work through my previous company. So I was in a pretty lucky position where the transition from no income to, I think, income generation was not too far ahead. But if it was like 6 months without income, I'm not too sure whether I'm standing here right now and sharing my stories. But I think for many of entrepreneurs that is pretty real. And I think we always make a choices in terms of in this reality of not really knowing when my next paycheck or income is coming in, what do I stand for? And I think that is what Jerry calls about, everyday commitment. And I think that's certainly my experiences as well. And I think another perspective that I have is entrepreneurship for me is a tool and avenue for me to exercise my career and expression of my purpose, but it's never the ultimate, I think, goals that I want to achieve. I think that is to me what makes me. I'm going back to corporate work while doing this my consulting and coaching work at the same time in late November, and the part of the reason that decision was what is a way for me to amplify my purpose in the stage of the career that I am at, and getting this corporate consulting work through good company was one of the ways for me to amplify my purpose and the work and the exposures and my growth. So in a sense, in period of where I had 1.5 year of entrepreneurship served me that purpose of really owning and also creating that impact for my client and the organization that I used to work together. And I'm very happy about that. But there are moments, I think, in your entrepreneurship journey that requires, I think, certain levels of challenges and new exposures. And if that is going back to, let's say, corporate work or, building the new partnership with someone that you haven't worked with in different formats, I would totally do that. So intention is remaining flexible in me, but I think for some entrepreneurship is the end game because they want financial freedom and also I think the stability. And so again, I think it goes back to what's something that you want to achieve in your life, and how does journey of entrepreneurship serve you to fulfill that, because otherwise it's very hard to recommit every day while you're doing that, because in itself it's really hard already.
Yeah. Thanks, Gloria, for that. Like you can go back and forth, right? And being flexible about it and leverage the advantages that you'll have for each situation. I have a little tickle in my throat. What I'd love to hear as we wrap up here is, as coaches, what are some words of wisdom you have for either people in careers and want to climb in their careers, or folks who are pursuing entrepreneurship? What's just some words of wisdom? And what are you working on that's exciting that you might want to share with the audience?
Me first this time? All right, we can go. Just want to double check because, I think for me, I shared this when I celebrated my company's 3-year anniversary. It's like recognizing, hey, um, when you are your own boss, you have to, it's up to you to really set aside the best part of your day to be sure to give your business the best chance to succeed, right? Like I used to fall in this trap of letting the life happen. And then I'd come home and I say, well, if I'm working on it for 15 or 30 minutes while I'm tired, it's still better than nothing. And, when you extrapolate that, no one would take you seriously in terms of saying, oh, like I want this business to succeed. And so it wasn't until a coach kind of highlighted this fact for me to realize, what, if I'm serious about this business, there's a couple times I'm going to have to take a day off, or not every morning is going to be rosy, but hey, like carve out 15 or carve out 30 minutes, carve out an hour every day, or at least consistently 3 or 4 times a week if you expect this to really give it a fighting chance, right? Much like any relationship, if you don't give the space for something to grow and you don't water it properly, like don't expect it to go anywhere. So don't get caught up in the romanticized idea. It sounds wonderful, and a lot of people like the idea, and it's not for everybody, guys. Like know when to pivot as well. I think I'll leave on that just to be respectful of time. This isn't for everybody, right? There was a caterer I read about. She tried catering or opening her own bakery, and then there was a day where she realized she left like her van door wide open, like while she was like half awake trying to get everything in. Like she just wasn't all there together, and she just needed that testing moment to realize, hey, you know what? I'm glad I found this out before I committed more of my life savings, towards building my own business. But yeah, I'll start there.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. I think for me, I think it kind of noodles into all the conversation that we had, but really noodling on your why. Why do you want to do business? And why do you want to pursue entrepreneurship? Or why do you want to provide the services? I think why is the only thing that sustains us in this very uncertain and volatile, I think, places that we are living in. Doing the business is an adaptive action every day. So if we want to really thrive, at least sustain the momentum of what we are doing, I think why needs to be super clear. And that can evolve, but knowing why at this moment you're doing this and rationalize it at least and commit, I think those practices is going to be super important as you navigate this uncertainty. If you're thinking about doing entrepreneurship, I think for me at the moment, I have 3 gift coaching sessions that I am offering in the month of November for immigrant women. So if you are immigrant women who's pursuing, I think, and also exploring some different career transition or wants to find your career aspiration and actualize and realize it to make it happen, I would love to get in touch with you to get to know, also see how I can support you through our gift coaching session.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Jerry, do you have anything exciting?
Oh yeah. I was like, let me bookend the question because I realized I was like, I got the first half, and then Gloria finished her whole thing, and then all right, let me make sure I finish the sandwich. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm super excited to build on this coaching package to help Asian leaders become more visible, vocal, and valuable. Let's do some role play. Let's help you assemble your toolbox of resources and frameworks to really help you get in a productive frame of mind, and really just get on a complimentary discovery call whenever you want, and let's see if this is right for you, because it is a big investment of time and finances. We're not going to dance around that, and at the same time, it's okay. Like if this is not the right time, hey, let me at least you show me where you need to go, so that you still get the resource what you want, and who you want to become, and the budget that you prefer.
Awesome. And we will drop some stuff in the chat, like where you can find everybody. Certainly connect with Gloria or Jerry on LinkedIn. But just wanted to thank both of you again for joining me today on LinkedIn Live, on Wisdom and Wellness. It's been such a pleasure, and it's fun for me to talk about identity and with folks who just get it. And I think that's why, I was saying earlier that I'm really proud to see more Asian coaches out in the world doing their thing, because people are looking for support. People are looking for help with their careers or becoming entrepreneurs, help with relationships, all sorts of things, right? And it's really sometimes can be safer, if you will, when you can work with people who just get it. So appreciate all, and I'm very excited to again just see more, see both of you and more of us Asian doing the coaching thing. With that, for on my end, I want to thank all of you in the audience also for joining, for listening in. Between live streams and workshops, community building events, coaching programs, etc., we're always working on something over here at Conscious Exchange. I'm excited to share that I have a new event coming up. It's a 2024 sales planning workshop to be able to help you create a plan and reach those sales goals in 2024 with more confidence, clarity, and community. So a lot of people will say that, hey, I want to make $100,000 in my business or multiple six figures in my business, right? Or and leave my job, etc. And they don't really have a roadmap to get there. But for you all, you don't have that problem because you follow me. So I am going to be sharing at this workshop my proprietary tool that shows you how to figure out, your sales for the full year. It's influenced by my over a decade of experience in the fashion retail world and the buying offices, where I was doing a lot of planning and forecasting for multi-million-dollar brands. It's been a favorite of my clients. Would you agree with that, Jerry and Gloria?
I agree.
It will show you the path, the roadmap when you don't have one, and help you make a lot of decisions from there. So, and hey, if it works for Nike, it will work for you. So we got to make sure that the math is mapping, and that you'll have a plan that really help you take this dream into a reality. So if you're interested in signing up for that, you can register for the workshop in the comments as well. Otherwise, thank you all so much. Again, thank you, Jerry and Gloria, for joining me today. Community is so important when it comes to navigating your career or your business. So please don't try to do it on your own. Hire one of us, right? Or just be in community with one of us. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Carissa. Thank you, Jerry.